Welcome to the Town Board Workshop and Public Hearing, Thursday, September 11, 2014. Please rise and salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to pause for a moment of silence to honor all the people who perished on September 11, 2001 in terrorist attacks against our beloved country, especially for the first responders, the firemen, the police, and also the ones who rushed to help and were never heard from again. Emergency exits are to my right, behind the town clerk, and also on the door that you entered the town hall meeting room. Roll, please.
Councilman Delango?
Here.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Here.
Councilman Doyle?
Here.
Supervisor Perotti?
Here.
And noted that Councilman Perotti is absent.
Okay, make a motion to open the public hearing for community development block grants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mike? Yes.
Hi. The town of Amenia has a long history of getting community development block grants. As a matter of fact, one of the things I was going to talk about in the grant update is that, we were given a time extension on the community development block grant for the Wassaic Trail to the Train project, which is a $100,000 handicapped accessibility project designed to benefit low to moderate income individuals. But the socioeconomics of Amenia have changed, and some parts of town are no longer, eligible as a low to moderate income community. However, that doesn't mean you can't apply for a grant in an area that may not on a map appear to be low to moderate income. There are ways of qualifying projects even if they're not in a low to moderate income area. One of the ways of doing that is conducting an income survey, which I have done in the past. It's really not that hard. You just go door to door with an anonymous survey and ask people to fill out, a questionnaire about, income range and household size. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because the town had intended, one of the projects that we had thought of, which we think should be a priority, is getting funding to extend the sidewalk network in town along Route 44 to Beekman Park, and also to improve handicapped accessibility at the post office and another area on Route 22 in front of Four Brothers.
And to do repairs.
Yes, those repairs. And we are seeking state grants. Later on, I guess I'll give you the grant update and showing that is a pending grant. And there's two grants that, we still are before New York State with. Hopefully, we will be successful with those, but if not...
Could you talk more about what we want to do with the sidewalk grant so people know?
What the town would like to do with this community development block grant is repair the existing asphalt sidewalk on Route 44 from approximately where the gas station is to Broadway, and then build a new sidewalk from Broadway to the park. Fortunately, we have obtained a cost estimate from Pete Sotero and a map as part of the previous grant. So it is a ready-to-go project. The only thing that we would have to do is the income survey, and I've already spoken to Ann Saylor of Dutchess County Department of Planning about that. She's also going to look to see if it may qualify just with a harder look using GIS, perhaps, you know, because I told her I think many of those areas may be apartments, you know, particularly if the target area includes, let's say, all of West Main Street to
Well,
Beekman Park.
well, to the, the post office area, and then in front of Four Brothers.
Right.
Where all the areas that need repair.
Our proposed project is certainly adjacent to the town's low to moderate income area. Really, the demarcation point is south of Route 343 and east of Route 22 in the hamlet. So even this project would be an extension from the hamlet, which is a low to moderate income area. I'm not sure I clarified that with Ann, but I'll talk to her again. She sent me an email today about this. I still think it is a good project because Supervisor Perotti had met with the county when we obtained the extension on our existing community development block grant, which was actually awarded 2 years ago. We were denied last year when we sought funds for handicap accessibility here at Town Hall. But so I think we have a good shot at it this year, especially if we do the income survey. I just know that they look upon those favorably. I mean, if we qualify it, it is a good project because we have the cost estimate of, I think the estimate is $240,000. So even if we get the state grants, there will be a need for additional funds. We may not get all of the state grants. We may not get them at all. So this $100,000 would be needed to, you know, to repair the sidewalks and.
Would be 150, wouldn't it?
150,000, yes. We would seek the maximum if it is. It's not just a handicapped accessibility project, it's an infrastructure project. So that's really it. I think it's a good project. I mean, I can talk to Ann Saylor. She had recommended, if we didn't hear from the public, if this project doesn't qualify, you know, if we may want to consider another project as a secondary one, but this could certainly be considered the priority when you pass the resolution endorsing this project.
Yeah, as part of the grant itself, there are consolidated plan priorities. That priority will be given to projects which address the priorities in the 2013-2017 consolidated plan. Now, the priorities are economic development, public facilities, and improvements, which is why we're looking at doing the sidewalks, because under that particular category, they have repair of existing or construction of new sidewalks and crosswalk infrastructure within centers, and sidewalk improvements and handicap accessible crosswalks and curves that reinforce pedestrian connections. So that's why we're looking at the sidewalks. The other consolidated plan priorities are water and wastewater, rental housing, owner-occupied housing, and homelessness, transitional and permanent housing. So since this particular idea met one of the consolidated plan priorities, that's why we decided to do that, besides the fact that our sidewalks are indeed in need of repair.
And part of the process does require this public hearing, giving the public an opportunity to give us ideas if, you know, if they have other projects in mind. But we also have to submit the minutes of this meeting and the legal notice, you know, to the county as part of the CDBG grant. That's really all I can, unless you have any other questions. But I think it is a good project. It's ready to go. And I can certainly do the income survey, probably on a weekend. We just have to give notice to the residents, and but I think we could do that.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? Make a motion to close the public hearing for community development block grant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Make a motion to return to regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Does the town board want to apply for a community development block grant for the sidewalks as proposed?
I think we should have a backup plan in case our income survey, in fact, does not make us eligible for funding. So I don't know if it would be appropriate to do as a, is north of the town is not included in the, north on 22, you said south of 343, so it has to be towards Wassaic? I'm sorry,
Yes.
where is our eligible?
It is basically the southeastern quadrant of the town. There's the map that,
Okay.
but that's just the overall area that's low to moderate income. It doesn't mean that a neighborhood may not be low to moderate income. That they don't, it's a general map. It doesn't know, it's, you know, there are ways of qualifying. And also, if a project is for handicap accessibility or designed to benefit seniors, it would qualify even if it's not in that zone. That's just an area benefit, so that if you were to apply for an infrastructure project, you would be eligible as a low to moderate income. I did think of an alternative too, if that doesn't, because there is still need for funding of the trail to the train. I don't know if they would consider additional funding. We already got a grant for that, so I mean, that might be far-fetched, but that could be a secondary one. Or, because it is
Well, we
in,
already have an existing one that we just got a
right, we haven't even,
extension for, so I don't think they give us one for the same thing.
right. But it really is, this problem, and we spoke to the county, they like sidewalk projects. It also fits with the county, or the town's hamlet plan and what we've already done.
And in the
So-
county plan, they like walkable projects.
But there's no way we could go ahead and get the sidewalk to the supermarket so people could access their only source of food in town?
It doesn't, it's not in the eligible area.
It's not, I mean, we could, the same thing would apply with income survey, although there's probably not as many residents there. I would look to the Transportation Alternatives Program again, maybe keep trying for that, because that's a bigger amount of money.
Yeah, this
Because 150,000
grant
is
is
the
very
maximum you can get for this one.
income-related.
But
Here is
It's
another
possible, I
thought.
mean, it could be, it's an idea, I just don't, you know.
You know, Wassaic is, you know, would hit the high note of economic development, and that the festival and the rail trail should all be coming together down in that area. We have businesses that are trying to get underway. We have sidewalks that are not in good repair from East Main Street, from Main Street all the way to Furnace Bank Road. That is cracked. It's not great. I mean, we could enhance our connection to the rail trail, perhaps improve the walkability across the rail trail, the railroad crossing area, similar to the way the rail trail at the Wassaic train station is going to have to deal with safe crossing. We have a lot of pedestrians going back and forth from the Lantern Inn across that railroad crossing to our park down at Wassaic Park, to the Luther Barn, to the Gridley Chapel and the historic site. So I think we could build a really nice case, and it wouldn't be that hard to estimate what it would cost to repair those sidewalks. I think Morris Associate can come up with, you know, they have in the past. They did the sidewalks in 2007 or so, or maybe earlier than that, 2005, along with the other parts of Wassaic. And it was basically from Queenie Luther's down into towards the hamlet, or the other direction we had done
Mike,
that.
from the way I'm looking at the map, Wassaic looks like it's in the eligible area, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
For
definitely,
sure.
it's a good idea, I think,
For sure.
it's definitely a good alternative, I mean.
You know,
if it's
Wassaic
just a
does
matter-
need some help with their,
It's the same idea of helping a hamlet. We haven't done the Wassaic hamlet plan, but it's definitely a good idea.
I think that if we can't get the people off of 22 onto a sidewalk to get their groceries here in Amenia, Wassaic would be an excellent place as a backup plan for this grant.
I agree.
So, I mean, it would just be a matter of getting Pete to look at it and talking to Ann Saylor again about that. So you have to really decide, but we still want to go with the sidewalk as priority number one. in Amenia.
Yeah, the sidewalk, but I think we just need to firm up what sidewalks where.
Okay, that's a great idea.
And whatever meets the, you know, whatever area meets the eligibility for the income requirements.
I mean, we're going to take care of those sidewalks that kind of go to nowhere on 44, right?
That's the thought.
From like the Hard Row Cafe to,
Other side.
Pages.
The Sunoco station.
no, that's what we're talking about, but we already passed that we were going to take out, we abandoned those old sidewalks, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't have any.
No, I understand that. So we already took care of those real dangerous sidewalks with the fall off.
Right.
Once we abandoned those, I mean, which ones are worse, the Wassaic sidewalks or the ones going to Beekman Park?
Well, I think
We can build a case for either one. We really
The
can.
thing is, this is all income eligibility related. So we need to look at the sidewalks in Mosaic and sidewalks in Amenia and see which ones are eligible for the grant. So that's what we need to do. If the Wasaic area is, meets the income eligibility in order to apply for the grant and shows, the most promise of, getting the $150,000, then I think that's what we need to do.
We do have to pass a resolution on either one of the projects or both, which you could do. I mean, I don't know if you have one tonight, but we could do it. It's due October 17th.
Well, we can do it at the next meeting. We
Okay.
have plenty of time.
Yeah, I
It's
just
not
wanted to
due to the
remind you that-
17th.
yeah, I can
And
do
that'll
that.
give us enough time to research what sidewalk areas meet the income eligibility for the grant.
Okay.
Town clerk report? Oh, I'm sorry, public comment.
Sharon Kroger. Ms. Lambert?
I'd like to speak briefly about the town law and the tax assessor position. In order to think, now the public has a vote coming up as to whether they're going to change the method of choosing the assessor. And I would submit that in order to think properly about this question, we must separate the structural issues from the question of what specific candidates do we want to take the position. It's not a good idea to confuse these two things because you don't get good decision-making for the public if you do that. That is, what model of functioning should Amenia have? Now, the state laws give us three options to towns and municipalities in the state. The most common one in rural areas with small towns is the three elected assessors, which we used to have years ago. And we had a lot of discussion when we changed from that model. But the benefit of that model is that people all know each other so well in a small town that when you're dealing with 2,000 or 3,000 people, or even under 5,000, people know each other so well that the assessment function should never become something that let's put it this way. It should never become something where somebody's getting back at somebody for something or reprisal or something of that kind. And when you have three elected, it pretty well, the public is represented there. And what happens is they talk together, they make accommodation, and they work out something, mostly in a compromise. And I've watched them do it. I remember over a couple of decades ago, what happens is it's pretty fair to everybody, and nobody gets hurt. The New York state laws allow that, and it still exists in some places. But the next option is one where it's one assessor and you elect the one, which is what we have now. And we had to have a vote in the town in order to change the model, which we did, and then we elected our one assessor. That still gives the population choices and accountability because you have various political parties that can put up candidates and you get choices. The third option is the one which is usually used by cities and large populations where you've got a massive government structure and then the appointment of a professional person is based on multiple interviews and professionalism of that kind. And in larger areas, you don't have to worry about the same problems you have to worry about in small towns like ours. So I would say that given an understanding of those three different options, we're basically in the middle. We are still electing. Our model still tells us to elect one. Of course, that person is supposed to get training. They're supposed to be aware of certain guidelines and whatnot. So there's some accountability there. But the law is also, the state law also assumes that once you move from the one old-fashioned farming model of the 3 elected assessors to the 1 elected assessor, you can't go back. And that assumption is that towns will always grow bigger, everything will become more and more complicated, and the more professional you get, the better. And those assumptions don't always hold true, because if you observe, all you have to do is go to the Association of Towns training programs for assessors, and you learn a lot, and you hear the discussions. And you frankly, it doesn't always work, that the more professionalized something gets, the more accountable and beneficial it is. And I would advocate that we keep the model we have, which is an elected assessor, and separate that whole question from who do we want to do it. Because it really is something valuable, the accountability that you have with making choices in elections. In a large city, you don't have to have that. You need much more checks and balances by public management a different way. But in small towns like this, we are much better off to keep the model that we've got. So I would advocate that when you go to vote, you vote no on the change, and then whatever decisions have to be made about who's going to do it, that's a different issue. And I'm not addressing that issue tonight. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Michael Collins, Amenia. I recently asked who voted to restrict our right during public comment to address town board members by name and instead have to address the board as a whole. Do 4 of you actually believe that all comments apply to the entire board? Or is it that you do not want to accept responsibility for your poor individual decisions? I'm grateful that 20% of this board has common sense and respect for our First Amendment rights. But to keep our supervisor from having another conniption and screaming "leave now," I will adhere to your new rules and continue to address the board as a whole. Vicki Doyle, Victoria Perotti, Stephen Perotti, and Mike DeLango all voted by resolution to restrict the public from addressing them by name. Vicki Doyle, Victoria Perotti, and Stephen Perotti have now voted to appoint an assessor rather than allowing the people of Amenia to decide. They must think very highly of themselves to believe their decision is more important than the rights of the citizens of Amenia. Vicki Doyle recently stated that dissension is an important part of democracy. Who, besides a hypocrite, would cast these votes and talk of the importance of a democracy? She wants to have it both ways. Vicki Doyle has been the common denominator in several controversial and divisive town boards. Mike DeLango recently stated that he had problems with comments that I have made. He went on to say that I caused trouble, that I'm not willing to help this town, and that I had violations. When he was made aware of his inaccuracies, he asked that I sit down and talk with him instead of attacking people and walking away. He cannot attack me with his inaccurate comments and then accuse me of attacking people, because he cannot have it both ways. He stated that he never received any facts. I guess he likes to hear me repeat myself. I read and provided this board with facts about 9 months ago. I've repeated the same facts again and again. He stated that we have to have dialect. 9 months ago was the time for dialogue. He cannot ignore repeated legitimate concerns and then when it becomes uncomfortable, ask for dialogue. You cannot have it both ways. Stephen Perotti recently voiced his support for allowing a commercial business to keep their non-compliant signage. Victoria Perotti quietly pursued non-compliance charges against a nonprofit that has benefited an entire community. Do they communicate with each other? They cannot have it both ways. When I first provided this board with facts, my intentions were to help the town. Michael and this town board repeatedly ignored my concerns regarding fairness on the planning board. I would have been very appreciative if this town board had simply addressed my concerns and had some level of dialogue at the time. That is what you are paid to do. Is that asking too much?
Is there any other public comment? Town clerk report?
Good evening. The monthly share has been remitted to the town supervisor in the amount of $1,252. I'd like to address the town residents this evening regarding the dog ordinance that the town of Amenia has. I have the pleasure of issuing out this past month 17 dog licenses, which is very good for the town. But one of the common factor that I've heard time after time is that they're unaware that the town of Amenia has a dog ordinance. And I'd like to let everyone know that you can locate this town ordinance. It's chapter 53 of the dogs. This law first came into act in the town of Amenia in 1981. It was amended in 1987, amended again in 1991, which is the current one that we have. And then again, it was amended in 2010, and the one that we have on the record is December 9th of 2010 by local law number 2. The town of Amenia finds that this was necessary to help with the running at large of the animals, the uncontrolled behavior of the dogs that cause physical harm to the persons and damage to the property that has created a nuisance in the town. In addition to finding what the purpose is, definitions, the licensing requirements are in this law. It tells you that all dogs that are aged of 4 months and older that locate, that are owned, or harbored within the town of Amenia shall be licensed. If you are visiting, you have a 30-day exemption, so if you're only here for 30 days, you're good. On the 31st day, you need to come in and see me and let's get your dog licensed. I just want to remind the community that we issue the licenses at the town clerk's office. We didn't make the laws. I'm here to listen to you. I've continued to listen all month. Tickets are being issued, and I don't want anyone to come into the office to say that they're not aware. All of the town codes can be found online, www.ameniany.gov. You're welcome to stop in my office, schedule an appointment, and I'll be glad to share you the town code law book. So please visit our website. The applications to apply for a first-time license, a renewal, or transfer ownership. It's a simple form. All I'm going to need is a note from your vet that gives me your rabies information and if the dog has been spayed or neutered. I hope to see some more of our residents. I know that there are more than 81 dogs in the town of Amenia.
And you can mail it in.
And you can mail it in. You don't have to come in. If you send me the original form from the vet, I will mail it back with you. Cute little silver tag that your dog gets to wear and chime around the house. So please, get your dog licensed. It will alleviate any issuance of a ticket.
So can you tell them how much it is?
Yep. If your dog is spayed or neutered, the cost is $12.50. If it is not, it is $20.50. It's a very simple form. So, and that's the big reminder that I want to preach about this month. That's it. Thank you.
Highway Department report, we'll have one at our next meeting. Building Department report.
We're going to hold off on that too because it's not in our packets.
Well, I don't think there was a report.
There was the monthly, what we took in from the building permits and everything.
I didn't get it.
It was emailed. And then I sent it to Dawn Marie.
Well, I guess we'll...
So we'll just put it
do
on
it
next
next
meeting.
month?
Yeah.
Okay. Water District report.
May Jones, Chairman of the Water District. We met yesterday, the committee met yesterday, and we spoke about different items. And Neptune sent us 18 meters that were worth over $4,000 and no charge to the Water District. And Marco's been putting them in at no charge to the Water District. So in the future, they're going to exchange bad meters for the good ones at no charge. And Marco finished all the special samplings for the year. And we discussed the software. So we're going to leave it up. The recommendation, the committee will recommend it. The reason why we're recommending it because Marco and the book and the water billing clerk feel that they want a new software. So they suggested the Williamson Law software. So it's up to you if you want to go ahead and approve it or not. Because all of us on the committee on the town board, we're all senior citizens that have retired before the computer age came into effect, so we're not up on computers, so that's why we are leaving it to the younger generation to make that decision, and we'll go along with it. Okay, and we recommend that Marco's contract be extended. That is your decision to make. And last week, I had the opportunity to speak with Councilman Gretchen, and she was quite concerned about two issues. And I'd like to discuss them now because I'm sure if she was concerned, there are other people that are also concerned. And she was concerned about Silo Ridge and the Tally Ho. And I just want to point out that the water laws we have written only apply to the water district, number 1. And next to it, I didn't write it down on there's a number they go by. And that number is only assigned to the town of Amenia Water District, number 1. So as far as the other two private companies go, we have nothing to say about that. They're owned by separate organizations or companies or whatever you want to call them. And they do not come under the jurisdiction of Amenia. And if in the future Amenia decides to take them over, then they would be water district number 2, 3, etc., etc. And also she inquired about our infrastructure. And right now we have about $200,000, just under $200,000 in our capital fund. And that will go towards any infrastructure improvements we need in the future. Right now, we don't need any, so we're saving that money for when we need it. And as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, so I believe tonight you're going to talk about this. I appreciate any comments or suggestions you have before we turn it over to the attorney and for her comments. And that's it. Thank you.
Has everybody had a chance to read it, the draft? It was put in your mailbox.
Well, we should have a discussion on it, right?
Do you
Yeah,
have
you
any
want to put it on
comments
the
about
meeting
it,
for the agenda? I didn't bring it with because it wasn't on the agenda for this week.
I don't know how you want to handle that, if you want to write it out and give it to me, or do it verbally, or
Well,
give it to...
we have one person not here, and we're not sure that everybody has gone through the whole thing.
Okay, well, give it to you, and you can give it to me, or however you want to handle it.
Well, everybody has it. You left a copy of it with everyone.
Yeah, everyone
So
has-
everybody, you know, is looking at it,
Okay,
and we'll get back to you.
okay, thank you.
Grant report?
One more thing about the water district.
Yeah.
Have we gotten a new copy of Marco's contract yet?
I
Yes.
don't know, have you?
We have a new copy?
I thought it came,
That
by
was the
email.
2009 copy.
That was the original.
I thought, okay. I thought,
This one?
okay, yeah,
Yeah, it says
That's old.
received 10/13 of 2009.
yeah.
This is the old copy.
That was the original.
I think I talked to him, and it's basically going to be this, oh, no, he told me that he had revised that when we were talking about, it included charges for reading the meters. So when we were looking at changing things up for the water law, he submitted a revision, and informally talking to him, he said that's the version that we should use. Does that make
The
sense?
water law?
So when we were talking about the water law, we were talking about who was in charge of reading the meters, and there was some concern, he's been doing it for free. It was not in his contract.
Yeah.
And then as we were talking more and more to him, he got quite frustrated with us and said, I'm going to charge you now for that. We ended up settling that, but I think that new revision, the only change that I know of, but he needs to put it before us again or confirm that that's the only change I know of, is that he was going to charge us for the meter reading.
I mean, the only problem I have is we have a contract that expires in October. We have 3 weeks to figure this out. I mean, is there a new contract? What does the contract say? What doesn't it say? I know there was issues about meter reading, where he was reading the meters, wasn't getting paid for it. Then there was a discrepancy with the previous board. Then he didn't want
We
to.
changed his contract, didn't we? We did change his contract.
Yeah,
Not
there was
since
a
I was on the
change.
board.
No, we haven't.
But we did not, he declined charging us, but I think in this new version, he will be
Because
requesting
at the
money.
present time, he's not charging the town for reading the meters.
Right, but I think for after October, if we have a new contract, we should make sure we know if he's going to charge us the extra fee or not.
Well, I'm sure he probably will.
So at this point, you'd like him to submit his new contract?
Yes.
That's right.
I mean, I do think we should keep it open also with his new contract coming in. I mean, I don't know, do we advertise for, other people, other operators? I mean, or is it just whatever contract he puts in, that's what we're taking?
Well, I'm sure if you ask him to submit a contract, you can go over it with him. He's familiar with the system here, and he's done a good job in the past.
May I understand that I'm not saying anything, but we have another decision to make, and it's like, you go to buy a new car, do you just look at one car? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, we're getting into a contractual agreement with someone. I mean, it's almost like when we put something out for bid. I mean, we have to have 3 bids, and, we go from there. My big worry is that it's not a contract that we want, or that's good for the town, never mind what we want, but we have to take it because we have no water operator. I mean, it only makes common sense to me to see a contract before, we consider, that we're keeping everything status quo. I mean, we might get a contract September 30th, and we don't like it, but we're kind of up against it. I mean, that's my only worry.
We do need a new contract as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
Everything he needs in it.
I mean, because, he's saying that he has to have water meeting, to read the water meters. I mean, what else is there? Is, the money the same as the contract 5 years ago? In that contract, his last contract, if you read it, was pretty vague. We don't know who's the backup water operator if he's not in the area. What happens here? Does he use the town to dig, or is it all the digging himself? You know, this is all stuff that I would love to see in a contract.
He has a backup person that,
Comes in.
if you need, will take, you know, if he's not around.
Yeah, but again, May, is it in the contract?
I don't know.
You know, the backup person, are they qualified?
I think,
I'm sure they would be licensed. He would not stick his neck out on unlicensed.
Again, I don't think he would either, but if we don't have the documentation, you know, a license or whatever, it could cause problems, and I'm worried about liability. You know, that's my whole thing. I understand we've been doing things the way we've been doing for the last 30, 40 years, but times have changed, and, you know, we need documentation, and we need proof of all these licenses and regulations and insurance policies.
Oh, he's fully insured and et cetera, as far as that goes. And this is the business he has.
I'm not questioning Marco, May. I'm not questioning. I'm questioning who's the second operator, who's the backup operator. I mean, that's my question.
I think it would probably be a good idea for us to have the contract and meet with Marco, or is that something that, you know, is that what you want to do?
Definitely. Definitely. I
So
mean,
he could answer questions?
you know, just like everybody else too. But now the thing is should we be looking for other contractors also?
Well, you have to make a choice. I mean, you're either going to renew the existing, or if you want to do RFPs, then you do that. But it isn't, if you're thinking about doing RFPs and looking for other contracts, then he should submit his contract as part of the RFP process and not ahead of time, so that you can go over it and it can, you know.
Now, do
and
we
people
have
can see it.
time? Do we have time to do an RFP or RFP, whatever you're calling it?
It'll be pretty tight.
I mean, can we extend him 30 days?
Well, I think that's what we need to do. So at least give us 30 more days see if, you know, with the existing contract, and then go on from there.
You know, I just think it's in good interest for the town to explore all avenues. That's the only thing I'm saying. I'm not saying Marco's bad or anything. I'm just saying I think it's in good interest for the town to explore all options. You know, there might be something different. There might be something that we learn from this process. That's just my thought.
Okay, do you, so I make a motion to ask the water operator to extend his contract for 30 days, so we have time to do our RFPs?
I
Is
think
that
that's
what you want to do?
I think that's a wise move, because I don't think we're going to get the RFPs done within the 30 days.
Is that what the board wants to do? Do you want to renew the, you know, the contract of the operator that we have, or do you want to do RFPs?
Can we extend his contract for 30 days? Is it possible with his existing contract?
Sure, if he would agree and the board would agree, you'd have to, I mean, one option would be to extend it on the existing terms for an additional time period, if he's agreeable to that. And just to answer your question, that there is a provision in the old contract, the existing one, regarding insurance and providing certificates. So that is included there. And I was a little unclear about what you were talking about, backup.
Yeah.
What do you mean if he's not around?
If he goes on vacation.
Yeah, if he's on
Well,
vacation, or if
He
goes
does
to...
have a backup.
I mean, he does, there's a provision in here about the employees that will provide employees experienced in the operation of water treatment facilities. Talk about level of certification will be consistent with regulatory requirements. The staffing plan shall promote proper and efficient operation of the treatment facilities. You know, that they'll maintain compliance with the permits and regulation of the New York State Department of Health, including inspections, daily testing, periodic reports required. They're to maintain professional relationship with all local and state regulatory agencies. So certainly, you wouldn't expect that he would just, disappear and not have, someone covering. His contract does obligate him to provide those services in a competent way.
No, I understand. No,
Okay, is that what the board chooses to do? I have a question. If he should come in with a contract, could the board extend it without going out for bids?
We would have to extend the existing contract.
In writing.
Oh, but if he were to come in with a new contract, could you base your decision on that, or do you have to go out for bids?
Well, if we do...
We don't
Well,
have to go
that would
out
be
for
a new
bids,
contract.
and actually, it would be RFPs, it wouldn't be bids.
Okay.
We don't have to, that's a decision that needs to be made.
I'd just be in favor of asking Marco to extend his existing contract 30 days and meeting with him at our earliest convenience so we can have a discussion with him about what he intends to provide in the next 5-year contract that he's going to, and then decide if we want to go out in RFP. I appreciate the Water Committee's effort. They've worked long and hard. I know Marco puts in a lot of hours for free. He meets with the committee. He's been very open with his time. He always spends time answering questions. I'm reluctant to go out to bid if, in fact, what he's going to provide to us already exceeds what we've already had an experience. We had VRI for a short period of time, and they bill us every single hour you're on the phone. You need to pick up and talk to them. It's always a business deal with them, whereas Marco comes and helps and does this, and he puts in the meters, he reads the meters, he spends time with us. I mean, he's sorted out a lot of issues. And so I would just prefer sitting down and talking to him about the next 5 years that he has in mind before we go out to bid and then make a decision.
Don't we have to bid based just upon the price of the contract?
No, because it's a
No,
professional service.
It's professional service. Okay, then we'll set up a time to meet with Marco. Okay.
Could be even part of our budget meetings that are coming up, in that you could tack it on as a part of our budgeting process, is my thought. Have him at the end of the meeting and just get it done with.
Well, Water District is the next budget meeting anyway,
Perfect. If he could come in.
so if he could come in like a half, okay. Roxbury Sand and Gravel compost request. Is there someone here from Roxbury Sand and Gravel? No? Okay. We've read the letter from Roxbury Sand and Gravel, and also looked at the information that they sent us. What we are doing at the time, we need to review the zoning law provisions and the DEC regulations. And upon that completion of that study, we can advise them as to whether it's, whether it's can be part of the zoning, or whether they would be able to do composting of yard waste. So we need to do some review before we do that.
Well, they are, they're in the mining overlay for most of it, but they're also in the office, commercial, industrial, and mixed-use area. So it could be considered light commercial use with adaptive reuse to do composting, even though composting specifically isn't mentioned in any other area than ag.
Well, that's why we've sent it on to John Fenton to review the zoning law provisions and the DEC regulations before we act on this.
There should be quite a file on this already. They asked for composting a while ago, and CAC looked into it. The Comprehensive Plan Committee recalled the reasons why they did not include composting specifically, because it's considered is the word for it? It's called solid waste in the definition, and it was purposefully not included in, no, I don't think it's allowed anywhere in the town. So
No, it's
that
allowed in
file-
the agricultural areas.
If you're in agriculture, so Ag and Markets protects that rights, right? But it's not an as-of right for this Roxbury Sand and Gravel or any other entity that I know of other than agricultural. So there should be in their file a huge mine of information that Mike Hayes and, you know, everybody else weighed in on back then. So whatever we looked at should be reviewed before we do new research and pay professional fees.
Mike, can you let John know about the,
The Roxbury Sand and Gravel file must
Previous-
have all of that information.
Yeah.
Do you know about
And
how
we
long
have
ago
the
that was?
DEC regulations too.
it's
3 or
only
4
a couple years
4
ago.
years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a long time. It's not a long, long time ago. I can talk to John Fenton if you want me to and just jog his memory.
Okay.
Well, there's
So-
gotta be a
Thoroughly,
file on
thoroughly
it, right?
research it. What?
There's got to be a file on it,
Yeah,
right?
that's what Vicki was
Absolutely.
saying.
So we'll dig up the file.
So does the board want me to wait to hear back from John on this?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yes.
don't do any research
Okay.
until we find out what has already been researched.
Yeah, John's already been asked to research that. Snow removal specifications for bids. I typed up the sample specifications for snow removal based on town law regarding sidewalks and requirement for businesses and homeowners to clear the sidewalks in front of their residents. In the budget last year, there was a budget item of $17,000 for sidewalks. We need to make some budget cuts because we have a tight budget this year. The tax cap has gone down. It's 1.56. In addition, the many taxpayers who don't have sidewalks would rather not have their taxes go for sidewalks to be cleared from other people. So this is, you can decide if you want to just send the specifications just for the town hall itself, for the walkways and steps, entrances around the town hall. Stan usually takes care of the big driveway and he does any sanding. But this would be a cost savings to the town.
Are you really thinking that we can have people going in and out of the bank and the businesses downtown without professional snow removal? Because we have had some serious snow and ice and issues, and it paralyzes activity on that sidewalk if you don't have...
That's because I think the town's been paying for it.
The town's been paying this for years. There's
Yeah.
villages, as far as I know, villages are the only ones that pay for this service.
Well, I've been there for 21 years, and the sidewalks were always clean until the town started paying people to do it. Because everybody took it upon themselves. It was their little portion. They had to clean it. They either hired someone or they did it themselves, or, there was a lot of neighborly stuff going on, and we got everything open. But then what ended up happening, I know in my situation anyway, when the town hired a company to do it, not that they did a bad job, I would do my sidewalk at 3 o'clock in the morning, they would come at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the snow would be back on the sidewalk. So then what I ended up doing was, I'm not touching my sidewalk anymore. The town is paying for it. Let them do it. Now it's a liability issue also. Who's responsible?
Yes.
Will the post office get done if we, in fact, don't
The
pay
way it
for
used to be the post office problem. They put it in the budget for snow
Post office
removal.
did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, that's how the whole street used to be, up until probably maybe 10 years ago, somewhere around there.
I mean, it's a big cost to the town. As Mike pointed out, it's a liability issue. And there are many people who don't have sidewalks, whose taxes are going to pay for, clearing the sidewalks, in front of people's businesses and homes. So the only specification I wanted to put out for snow removal is just at the town hall, so we could open for business at 8.
I do feel that we could probably give Stan some more overtime and see if we could get Stan's crew to do it.
Stan, I've already talked to Stan about this. Stan has, over 30 miles of roads that they need to get open for the school buses. And even he's out there plowing.
Mhm.
So it's that's why we had someone, do this part of it last year. And then when he got done, he took care of the big parking lot and with sand.
What did this cost last year?
The total amount in the budget was $17,000.
But that was
Did we
for
use that?
sidewalks and everything.
Yes,
So now we're taking the sidewalks out and basically just doing the town hall property.
right.
Now, who takes care of the sidewalks that are the town's responsibility? Like in front of the basketball courts and stuff like that? Now, is that going to be a highway issue?
What town responsibility?
Well, the town has sidewalks in front of the basketball court, right?
Yes.
Is that the town's
Yes.
responsibility?
And that would be the adjacent landowner, and that would be us, I would assume.
So we would have to take care of, that would be part of this, that we would have to take care of our
That
own.
would be part of this also.
Yes,
So, I mean, we're going to have to kind of go through and find out what's the town responsibility for the sidewalks, and probably revise the bid specs then.
well, that's the only one that needed to be added.
I think
Because
we
we-
own
we
just
have the
on
walk-
north of, we own on the north side of the parking lot on Depot Hill Road. As you're going up Depot Hill Road, a funky little stretch is ours. The county owns along the rail trail, and if you park in the parking lot, we own that little funky spot where the portage stand is and the new trees are going up that little bit of the sidewalk. So there's going to be some awkward patches, you're right,
So we'd have to do those pieces
I
too.
would think.
You
Okay.
would-
If we're responsible, I mean,
I
we're
mean,
gonna have to cut off at the park.
To be honest with you, Vicki, I think it's going to
Crazy.
be, I think it's going to work the right way. I
Okay.
think that the homeowners and the business owners are going to do what they have to do. I think, I mean, I know myself last year, even with us paying to clean sidewalks, I don't know how many people I dug out, personally.
Yeah.
So I do think there is a lot of help going on and stuff like that.
And there's also, a lot of people in the town that's their second source of income, to take care of their families is plowing.
Would it be possible to move the monies into the highway fund and then allow Stan to, get the part-time person in to do the town?
Well, we would have to
Roads.
discuss that with him.
Can we do that?
We've had that discussion with him before, and actually, it worked out better for us to have a separate person do the town hall, because we're a business.
No,
we
I
need to be
mean,
open
to
at
have
8.
them he can have a separate person do it, but have that
But
person
he
be
also-
under the highway
Well,
department.
You can't just hire another person without having a vehicle. So you're going to hire another person, and the other, the whole highway department is using all the equipment for plowing, and what is that person supposed to use to plow with?
So Stan cannot hire any subcontractors?
We're the ones that go out to bid to get a contractor.
Is it possible to move the funds and the bid over into the highway area? Stan knows all the little roads that are town and sidewalks that are town.
Well, it
Knows
sounds
all
like
the ins
there's
and
two.
outs of the process, and he seems to be the expert person. Perhaps we could table the rest of this discussion until next week when he's available. 2 weeks from now when he's available. I'll make a motion to do that.
Actually, when you table, you don't have to motion. You can table it to next week. But I just wanted to bring it up I gave you, all copies of the law so that, we could think about what we needed to do in order to save some money in the budget and also reduce the liability to the town. The Old Amenia landfill technical service change order number 5. Resolution number
38.
At a meeting of the Town Board for the Town of Amenia held at the Amenia Town Hall on the 11th day of September 2014 at 7 p.m., Town Supervisor Victoria Perotti called the meeting to order and seconded by Councilwoman, moved the following resolution. Who's the second?
I'll second.
Move the following resolution to it, whereas the Town of Amenia has entered into a contract with CT Mail Associates dated June 21st, 2007, original contract, to perform certain engineering and technical services on behalf of the town with respect to remediation of the Old Amenia landfill located on Route 22 in the town, Old Amenia Landfill Project. Whereas the fee for the services provided by CT Mail Associates contained in the original contract was $562,218,76. Whereas as a result of the previous change orders, the fee for the services provided by CT Mail Associates under the original contract has increased to $1,733,568.59. Whereas CT Mail Associates has presented the Town Board with technical services change order number 5, issued September 2nd, 2014, pertaining to what CT Mail Associates describes as additional project manager and construction administration and oversight services, a copy of which technical services change order number 5 is attached hereto, which more particularly describes such services. Whereas the requested fee increase for the services contained in technical services change order number 5 is equal to $175,466.39. Whereas the approval of technical services change order number 5, in addition to previously approved change orders, would result in an increase of the original contract to $1,909,034.98. Whereas pursuant to the state assistance contract with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC is providing the funding for 75% of the eligible engineering and construction costs on the Old Amenia landfill project. Whereas the Town Board believes the additional costs contained in technical service change order number 5 will be eligible for funding under the state assistance contract with DEC, and the town will be responsible for 25% of the additional costs as a result of technical services change order number 5. Whereas the DEC has approved the draft technical services change order number 5 by email correspondence dated September 2nd, 2014, a copy of which is attached hereto. Whereas CT Mail has been advising the Town Board about the current status of the Old Amenia landfill project, certain issues regarding the project's completion that have been encountered by CT Mail Associates and Sevenson Environmental Services. Whereas after several consultations with the supervisor, town personnel, the Town Board, and the town's Special Environmental Counsel, Kimberly Shaw Ray of Westervelt and Ray, LLP, CT Mail Associates has advised the town of additional services required to be rendered by CT Mail Associates to remedy several problems encountered in the completion of the Old Amenia landfill project. Whereas the Town Board is relying upon the engineering expertise of CT Mail Associates in its recommendations that the additional services included in technical services change order number 5 are vital to completion of the project. Whereas the Town Board has reviewed technical service change order number 5 along with the supporting documentation attached thereto and the approval email correspondence from DEC dated September 2nd, 2014. Whereas the town board, based on the advice of its retained experts and its reliance thereon, without adoption of or agreement with any statements contained in the attached Technical Services Change Order Number 5 as to the causes of issues encountered with the Old Amenia landfill project, has determined that the additional services provided by or to be provided by CT Mail Associates as described in Technical Services Change Order Number 5 are necessary in order to remedy the outstanding issues with the project and to complete the remediation of the Old Amenia landfill project. And whereas the town board has determined that it is in the best interest of the town to approve Technical Service Change Order Number 5 and to authorize the town supervisor to sign the same, and whereas the approval of a technical service change order is a Type 2 action of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and therefore is not subject to seeker review. Now therefore it is hereby resolved that the town board approves technical services change order number 5 from CT Mail Associates in the amount of $175,466.39. It is hereby further resolved the town board hereby authorizes the town supervisor to sign technical services change order number 5 in the form attached hereto on behalf of the town. Do you want someone make that motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the technical services change order number 5 from CT Mail Associates.
Is there a second?
Well, Gretchen seconded it as you were.
That
Oh,
was
did she?
from
Okay,
the
sorry.
town. Called me
What
over.
did-
Yeah,
I
already,
didn't.
already did
Okay.
that.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti is noted as absent, and Councilman Delango.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 39. Approval of change order number 5 on Amenia landfill remediation project. Meeting of the town board of the town of Amenia held at the Amenia Town Hall on the 11th day of September 2014 at 7 o'clock. Town Supervisor Victoria Perotti called the meeting to order.
Second.
Whereas the town of Amenia has entered into a contract with 7 Sin Environmental Services dated March 13, 2012, to perform certain remedial construction work at the Amenia Town landfill located on Route 22 in the town, the Amenia landfill project. Whereas the town's engineer of record on the remediation project, the CT Mail Associates Engineers, Survey Architect, and Landscape Architecture, PC, which perform remedial design and is performing construction oversight for the project. Whereas the original contract price for the services provided by 7 Sin is $4,644,879.50. Whereas as a result of previous change orders, the original contract price was increased to $5,663,952.54. Whereas CT Mail has presented the town board with change board number 5, issued on September 10, 2014, a copy of which is attached hereto, pertaining to additional work performed or to be performed by 7 Sin, the more significant items of which include and are summarized as: 1, the adjustment downward of the quantity of units acres for overseeding and hydromulch based on the actual numbers of units incorporated into the work, all as more specifically detailed in change order number 5 attached hereto. 2, the supply of all labor, equipment, and tools to mow the existing vegetated cover of the landfill service where it is more than 4 inches in height down to a maximum of 4 inches in height, all is more specifically detailed in change order number 5 attached hereto. 3, the adjustment of units under change order number 4, item 8.7, flowable fill and articulating concrete block openings, and the supply of all labor, equipment, materials, and tools for 1 additional day to complete installation of flowable fill and openings of ACB as described in change order number 4. Item 8.7, in areas where loss of material has occurred below the ACB, creating a stable surface below the ACB, supply and installation of controlled low-strength material and openings in block along bottom, 3-foot width of the swale and 1.5 feet up the sides. Adjustment of flowable fill upward based on actual number of units used, all is more specifically detailed in change order number 5 attached hereto. 4, the supply of all labor, equipment, materials, and tools to install silt socks in accordance with sketch plans suggested drainage improvements in West Swale as revised on September 4, 2014. The removal of silt on nonwoven geotextile and polyethylene covering protecting stone filling in West Drainage Swale. Removal and proper disposal off-site of silt socks when vegetation is fully established. All is more specifically detailed in change order number 5 attached hereto. 5, in accordance with the requirements of the contract documents, all work shall be guaranteed by the contractor until at least 1 year after the date final payment becomes due. Whereas said change order number 5 sets forth certain particulars under the headings necessity for change and why was change not foreseen during original design as the reasons additional work is necessary by Sevenson. All is specifically set forth in the attached change order number 5. Whereas the requested net fee increase for the services contained in change order number 5 is equal to $18,382.52. Whereas the approval of change order number 5, in addition to previously approved change orders, will result in an increase of the original contract price, $5,682,335.06. Whereas pursuant to the state assistant contract with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC is providing the funding for 75% of the eligible engineering and construction costs on the Amenia landfill project. Whereas the town board believes that the additional costs contained in change order number 5 will be eligible for funding under the state assistance contract with DEC, and the town will be responsible for 25% of the additional costs as a result of change order number 5. Whereas the DEC has approved change order number 5 by email correspondence dated September 9, 2014, a copy of which is attached hereto. Whereas CT Mail has been advising the town board about the current status of the Amenia landfill project and certain issues regarding the project's completion that have been encountered by CT Mail and Sevenson. Whereas after several consultations with the supervisor, town personnel, the town board, and the town's special environmental counsel, Kimberly Shaw Ray of Westerville and Ray, CT Mail Associates has recommended approval of change order number 5 to remedy several problems encountered in the completion of the Amenia landfill project. Whereas the town board is relying upon the engineering expertise of CT Mail and its recommendations that change order number 5 is vital to completion of the project. Whereas the town board has reviewed change order number 5 along with the supporting documentation attached hereto and the approval email correspondence from DEC dated September 9, 2014. Whereas the town board, based on the advice of its retained experts and reliance thereon, without adoption of or agreement with any statements contained in the attached change order number 5 as to the causes of issues encountered with the Amenia landfill project, has determined that the additional services provided by or to be provided by Sevenson in change order number 5 are necessary in order to remedy the outstanding issues with the project to complete the remediation of Amenia landfill project. Whereas the town board has determined it is the best interest of the town to approve change order number 5, to authorize the town supervisor to sign the same. Whereas approval of a change order is a type 2 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and therefore is not subject to seeker review. Now therefore it is hereby resolved that the town board approves change order number 5 from Sevenson in the amount of $18,382.52. It is hereby further resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the town supervisor to sign change order number 5 in the form attached hereto on behalf of the town.
You made that motion, Victoria.
Mhm.
Supervisor Perotti?
Is there a second?
Gretchen seconded it.
Be me.
I'm getting
Hi.
seconds before I'm getting first.
Hi, how are you doing?
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Hitzelberger?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
And Councilman Perotti is going to be noted as absent.
Can I just say one thing on the change orders for the landfill? Denise, thank you for working so late and getting all the technical stuff together. I mean, you were up late for days. and we appreciate it because without it, we couldn't move forward on the project.
Thank you.
10 Mile River Watershed Council.
Evening, everybody. Thanks for having me back to talk more about collaborative management along the 10 Mile. So in the interest of not taking up as much of your time as I might if I had to try to hit all the points here, I did send you guys an email yesterday that went through. I was able to review the footage of your last meeting, heard what some of your concerns were, and I was hopefully was able to address some of those in the email I sent. But I'll just say that really pretty simply at this point, all HVA is doing is going around to towns in the watershed and just trying to establish that people agree that collaborative management of the 10 Mile watershed is a good idea. And if so, working with towns to do some sort of more formal expression of that we can use for things like pursuing listing of the 10 Mile as a designated waterway, as you guys talked about last time, but other things besides that too, support for grant applications and that kind of thing. Did you guys get a chance to review what I sent yesterday, or did any questions arise out of that, or did that help to alleviate some of your concerns that came up at the last meeting?
I had just one question, but not related to your email.
Oh, sure.
That clarified, for me anyway, the questions that arose. EPF funding and how that would be tied potentially to the designation. Can you go over that again? And or is it not necessarily? Is it just in general that if we have a cooperative agreement between our 10 Mile River watershed communities, that in and of itself would show that we are interested in cooperating, communicating, and collaborating towards solutions, or is there any one particular funding pot that particularly would make us then eligible?
Well, so those Department of State programs that fund watershed planning and implementation of those plans, you do have to have some kind of formal arrangement at the watershed level, watershed council or something of that nature,
Okay.
In order to be eligible for those. And you have to be, and actually to be eligible for listing, you have to have that in order to show that the
Okay, so the
communities in the
first
water.
step is
Right,
the
which
management
is the first
plan.
step, right.
Okay, got it.
And then once the 10 Mile is listed, then that opens the door to those DOS programs. But again, that's not the only advantage to working together at the watershed level. There's lots of other grant programs out there that, although it's not a requirement to have that kind of cooperation at the watershed level, it's certainly a bonus and can give you a competitive advantage when you're going for some of those programs. An example is actually over in Connecticut, but it's a federal program. We're looking at doing a watershed management plan for the Still River Basin, which is the Danbury metro area. And we've done a lot of work with the communities in that watershed to get a fairly formal expressions of support for the project, and we were able to get funding through Clean Water Act Section 319, and it really wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that kind of community support.
Well, the town has, through a coalition of several towns, has applied and received a hazardous mitigation grant for $111,000 without being part of any kind of a watershed console. One question I had, if there was a 10-mile watershed console, who would set policy?
Yeah, I think the idea is that it would be more of an advisory kind of group, and it would be a place where towns could come together to talk about shared problems, and the solutions would end up happening and the decisions would end up happening as they do now back in the individual towns, but it would be a way for towns to sort of strategize together.
So the towns would actually run the console, or what would HVA's purpose?
Our role in all this is just as facilitator, organizer. I think the way we've been thinking about the framework for the council is to have the towns appoint members by resolution, and if there were things that needed to be voted on, probably stuff related to if there there was pursuit of grants to fund watershed level planning, it would be stuff related to that and guiding the planning process. But, you know, things like, I don't know, one of the concerns that came up at your last meeting was private property rights and impact on land use decision making. I mean, this body wouldn't have any of those kinds of, wouldn't have that role. That role would still sit at the member municipalities. Not sure if that
Okay,
answers your
so would there
question.
be an intermunicipal agreement in place? Because what I've done is, I actually looked up some of the intermunicipal agreements that were online. I was looking at the Cayuga Lake Watershed Restoration and Protection Plan, and it looks like there's a cost to the municipalities. And then in their contract, it says the council will have ultimate authority on overall municipal contributions and dispersal of those funds. So would there be funds that the towns would be expected to provide to this watershed council?
We're not even thinking at that level of detail at this point. I mean, I think at this point we're just trying to establish agreement that the idea of working together at the watershed level is a good one, and you know, get a group together that can start talking about some of the, you know, answering some of these questions.
So you're still in the talking phase?
Right.
Okay,
But
when you get beyond the talking
Excuse
phase
me,
into
Victoria?
actual policy,
Excuse me, Victoria, what was the cost that they had associated?
they didn't have a cost?
They just mentioned that it existed, but they didn't give the price.
No.
Right, and that, if I'm remembering the Cayuga group correctly, they formed their council.
There was some addendum that wasn't online. I said the participating municipalities will provide the necessary funding based on a formula attached in the addendum, and the addendum wasn't online.
Right, so some of these DOS programs require match, and again, that's a very specific potential route application that this group could go. That's one of many different things that could be accomplished by this group. But there's a match involved with those programs, and I think in that situation, that what you're talking about there is how the member communities were coming up with that match that's required for some of those watershed planning grants.
Yeah, I also looked at the intermunicipal agreement for the Wappinger Creek watershed, and everyone that was in that. And the last sentence I thought was kind of interesting. It said, with the active assistance of the development community, we will review our municipal codes for inconsistencies and regulations that induce sprawl and promote low-impact development and green site designs to minimize the creation of new impervious surfaces by 2006. So even though, you know, you say it won't impose on property rights, what will it impose on?
Well, I think the decision to change a regulation to, you know, say adopt LID practices or do something of that nature, all that decision-making authority would still reside with the town. The council would not be able to compel the town to do that in any way.
But would the council require funds from the towns?
Again, I think it depends on what ends up happening with the route that the council decides to go down. I mean, if for instance, the council tried to go after a grant that required some kind of match, then, you know, and it had to come from the member communities, then we'd have to sort out how that was going to work. I can't give you a lot of details on how that would go yet, because that's really a decision that the council and the member communities would make when we got to that point.
So right now, there's only one town that is
so far,
interested?
right, the town of Dover has passed model language that we provided, again, just to indicate that, you know, they
There's
feel
an interest?
that there's an interest in that. They agree with the concept that there are issues at the watershed level that are difficult for individual towns in the watershed to address on their own, and there's advantages to collaboration on dealing with those issues.
Well, as far as watershed issues, I mean, isn't that what the DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers handle and advise the town on?
They do some of that, but there's, I think working locally there's a lot more opportunities that can come about if we're working locally on these issues. And we already are. I mean, it's, you know, you can think about things like flood response or dealing with stream management kinds of issues. You know, towns are already dealing with this kind of thing on their own. But there's advantages to working on them with sort of a more watershed-based approach. So the example that I used in the letter that I sent to you guys was, say you have a situation where a stream is unstable, you've got an eroding bank upstream. Obviously there's issues there, but there's also issues downstream in what may be a different municipality where that sediment is falling out of the stream, right? So you have a problem at the upstream end where the erosion is, and a problem at the downstream end where you've got where the deposition is. And you guys, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with these kinds of stream features. They're pretty common in the 10 mile. There's an advantage to those two towns getting together and working together to solve that problem, because the definitive way to solve the problem is to shut down the erosion, right? Not to just keep hogging out the gravel out of the stream, because it's going to just come back. So that's probably one of the better examples of a situation where a problem transcends municipal boundaries and it makes sense for towns to work together to address it. And even just having those conversations is, you know, that I think what we envision for the council is that would be a place to talk about issues like that, even before we get into the, you know, the nitty-gritty of trying to.
What towns are you looking at?
There are 14 towns that have territory in the watershed in 2 states. Really the core of the main stem towns is Dover and Amenia. So we're starting here for a good reason. This is, you guys are downstream of the rest of those towns, so it's important to start with you guys. And it really, you know, it's a lot of what happens up there has an impact on the town of Amenia. So it's important to think about that. But after Dover and yourselves, there's Northeast, Pauling, Sharon and Salisbury in Connecticut. Let's see, there's portions of Beekman, Unionvale. I'd have to look at a map to get them all out there, but those are the ones with the most territory, the ones that I've named. And I think I left a map with you guys when I was here last time that's got a pretty good delineation of the watershed and all the different communities.
And what kind of technical, I would be looking mostly as an information sharing opportunity, in my opinion, just to get more familiar with the way the water comes, what areas we have that are chronic flooding issues. Poor Wassaic, I mean, if you live down there, you know, 07, 09, I mean, we've had seriously, I would practically say catastrophic flooding. It disables these homes. We've had flooding issues way back when the water was over the tops of the houses due to the bridge washing out. We have areas that are very, very sensitive to a culvert being blocked up, which happened 2 times at what is now Roxbury Sand and Gravel. I mean, we have areas documented extremely well, thanks to the CAC and photos before and after. What happens when you have one culvert that isn't sized right on private land? And DEC did help and worked it out, but it wasn't done in time, and we had a recurrent problem there.
But since then,
It's been
Roxbury
fixed.
has
Yeah.
spent a great deal of
Right.
time and money.
And gotten that fixed, but
And
there
got
are
a great, bridge there. And
areas that are highly sensitive to a beaver dam or to debris or sedimentation. I've had a landowner plead with me to please consider dredging a section of the creek that runs, those houses are all right on the creek. All those businesses are right on the creek. In a channelized, one thing goes wrong and we have big problems. And I think, what we do need to do is have a good sense of what happens when the abutments fall in eventually behind Pauling Corp. Has anybody crossed over that bridge recently and the abutments are ever so slowly falling in?
I understand.
What happens to the communities downstream
Yeah.
or our residents?
I understand all that you're saying, but how does this help?
By information sharing, by understanding where the water is coming down, where our hot spots are, and where it's critical that before a storm, if we have any.
But
I mean, it
at
seems
all,
like we know where a lot of the hot spots are. I mean, you're saying all these places with areas and stuff. I mean, my whole
I'm not
theory,
positive
and
I know all of them.
nothing
Yeah.
against this, but it's, again, it's more it's almost like you're a consultant. This is what you should do, this is what we recommend you doing and stuff like that. I mean, the town has engineers, the town has consultants, the town has, DEC telling us what to do. It's almost like, how many chefs are you going to fit in a kitchen? And is it another association that puts, more, another 2 cents in on top of, is it redundant? You understand what I'm saying? That's my issue with it,
Well, at this point, there isn't an entity that really covers the whole watershed, and there's not that kind of communication happening watershed-wide, that's the only reason why I'm here. It's because that's not happening, and it's really, we're not doing this so we can have more of a say what happens over here. It's to improve communication amongst the towns, because we know that the stuff that falls under our mission, water quality, those kinds of things, those things will get better if the towns in the watershed are communicating and working together, without a doubt.
Why would you need a resolution to do that? Why not just encourage the information sharing?
The resolution is really just sort of step one, just that to establish that the towns in the watershed all agree that working together to work on watershed-wide problems is a good idea. That sets us up for things like pursuing the listing as a designated water body that we've talked about a lot. Sets us up for instance, we put in a grant a few weeks back for the town to do some stormwater management work on the grounds of Town Hall. A resolution like that is something we can point to in an application like that can certainly improve our chances of getting funding. It's really, the idea is to have a tool that we can use for a variety of different things, and that resolution just is a more formal indication that you guys are on board with this idea of collaborative watershed management.
And what are the benefits of the 10 Mile River watershed being designated as an inland waterway?
Well, there's the opening the door to the EPF funds and some of the other the DOS programs. That's the big one. And there's also the availability of technical support through those programs, as well as the funding. So that's really the big carrot.
Right now, being designated inland waterways, I imagine there's certain restrictions that come along with that also.
No, the listing doesn't really change much.
Doesn't change much.
No.
I mean,
when they passed that legislation to begin with, there was many water bodies that were on that list to start with. It didn't change anything for them. So no, yeah, that doesn't impact. Private property rights was the concern that came up last time. It doesn't impact
Vicki,
any
you
of that.
sent a Poughkeepsie Journal article that it had a lot of areas that were you guys involved in that? Is he familiar with the article?
No, that's over in
Wappingers.
Wappingers.
That
I
was
just was
Wappingers.
watching that in the Poughkeepsie Journal and thought I'd share with you some of the collaborative projects that were funded. 11 different projects, big ticket items were done in areas, Pleasant Valley, all along Salt Point.
One was actually northeast, Weebatuck Creek
and
or something,
Northeast
right?
got some too. Yep, it was
Yeah.
collaborative group towns saying, we have flooding issues. We want to work together. We know what we do affects the streams all around, it affects the communities all around us. So all it does is say, yes, we understand that this is beyond our political boundary and we are working hand in glove with the other communities. In other words, if we're going to channelize a portion of our stream to reduce flooding in, let's say, Wassaic, we know Katy is now going to find a greater volume downstream. I'm sorry, but that's just going to happen. Now, I might say to Katy, gee, we're planning on doing this. How is that going to affect your communities and your families that are, right on the banks? So it's a courtesy, it's an information sharing, it's a look, we understand what we do here is potentially going to affect somebody else and we want to do it in concert. So the state rewarded those communities and said, thank you, because we want all of Dutchess County's Wappinger Creek watershed to work. So what we're not doing is passing on our problem to the community downstream. That's my take on it, and the communities above us.
And I would just say that there are advantages and there are issues that are sort of watershed scale beyond just flooding. I mean, Something that's a little bit more positive is the idea of river-based recreation. So figuring out where you have river access points to increase use of the river, boating and fishing and those kinds of things. That's better approached at the watershed scale. Being able to look at the entire river system is going to give you a much better idea of where the gaps are. And you know, if one of your goals of the Watershed Council is to enhance river-based recreation, you know, that would be a good forum to start talking about how you go about doing it. So it's not just flooding.
Yeah, we did have somebody come to the CAC meeting who specifically only wanted to work on improving the kayaking opportunities and put-ins and takeouts and clearing, you know, gentle clearing of the stream so a portion could be navigable. So he was all enthusiastic about that. That's not something the CAC at that point was ready to jump on board, but they did at their last meeting say that was really what they were more interested in is exploring the 10 Mile River recreational opportunities where possible. So yes, recreation. I'm sorry, I've been focusing on funding because I live in Wassaic and I see the flooding and have people coming to me and saying, you know, there's a problem here. We flood every time there's, you know, these episodic rainfall, so that's what I focused on. But the CAC was very much more interested in pursuing the recreational opportunities. Does Katie Palmer House want to speak to her community, or?
I'll answer any questions. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for us to understand what motivated the town of Dover to pass this, be the first pioneer to pass their
certainly.
resolution.
I'm Katie Palmer House. I'm town clerk of the town of Dover, but from 2001 to 2010, I was a town councilwoman, and our communities worked together on the all-hazard mitigation plan.
Certainly.
And I believe your town got benefit from that plan to go on to be able to get funding, that without that plan, you wouldn't have been able to have that type of funding. And I believe this is a natural extension of our collaboration in all hazard work. That the next step, we completed our plan collaboratively in 2010. It's up for a renewal in 2015. The goal is to build upon the plan that we have. We've identified that flooding is a big issue for all our 9 communities, which range from Pine Plains to Pawling. And by working, and Dover feels that collaboration is the way to solve complex problems. So we did pass this resolution. It's boilerplate. All it says is we're going to come to the table and talk about this issue. If we decide to pursue the designation, that potentially could also open us to funding. Now, back when we did the all hazard, we had an in-kind match of funding, so no town actually paid. We contributed our hours together at meetings and in discussion. And, you know, one community would take the lead and be able to put that together. And I thought it was a great collaboration, to be honest. It was one of the best things that happened in Eastern Dutchess. So my hope is that you will join us, and I'm willing to drive here to be with you tonight and to go to Pine Plains and to go to Millerton, because this is you're part of my community as well. You know, the people of Amenia are as close to me as Dover. And I did, when I went to the Watershed Forum, I wrote a little article about what took place there. It's kind of an article I'll share with you if you'd like. But I don't think it obligates us to anything financially. It just says that we're all committed to our residents to know that natural occurrences can affect all of us, and that we're all willing to come to the table. So I hope you'll think about passing it. So, any questions, anybody? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. See, Mike Kelsey is here. Would you like to come speak to us now?
How are you? Michael Kelsey, County Legislator. As a little segue from that presentation to this one, when the Wappingers Creek was, I don't know if you need that. when the Wappingers Creek was looking to get the inland designation, they approached myself, and the county legislature did support that effort, and they did receive a number of funding, as was mentioned. Mike Herzog, who's the trustee in the village of Millbrook, he's the head of that group. He might be a good person to reach out to. I live on the Wappingers Creek. I do a lot of kayaking on there. I have a website promoting recreation on the creek. But speaking with a number of the supervisors and mayors in the area, I think it is a good organization, so it might be worthwhile to see how it works for them. And also, on this, with the 10 Mile River, I was approached to ask to get the county support behind it. So I am moving forward with that, but I definitely would defer to Amenia. So, please share your thoughts with me as you contemplate this. Other news in the county, we've been grappling with a number of topics. Usually, I like to tell you the results, but we don't have a lot of results on a lot of these issues. First off, a project that I've been working on over the last several years, I've reported on you before, as recently as in June, is the idea of having tax installments, giving taxpayers the ability to pay their taxes in installments rather than in one shot. I had sent a letter out to supervisors and mayors in June, did again in August, and we put it on our agenda this month for discussion only, with the idea of generating input from the various towns, so this past Thursday we did that. Prior to us having the discussion, we received a letter from the Supervisors and Mayors Association voicing their opposition. It would appear that one of our legislators, who also serves as a mayor, went to their meeting, though it was not on the agenda, and pushed for a vote of the Supervisors and Mayors Association. I think it's unfortunate because we were not asking legislators to take a position. We were not voting. We were just collecting information and data. And once the Supervisors and Mayor Association weighed in, it really kind of brought the issue to a standstill. The position they took in their letter was that they saw as an unfunded mandate. I do not believe it is. I think the tax collection process is an already existing process that there can be changes, but I don't think it's a new mandate. And also, the letter expressed concern that tax collectors may have added work, which I've been clear from the beginning there would be additional work. How much is what we were looking at. Nowhere did it mention the role of taxpayers in this. I maintain that it is still an issue of equality when you're looking at, depending upon whether you live in a first-class town or second-class town, whether you have a benefit of paying in installments or paying in one shot. But all these issues that are involved with it, I think right now are really dead on arrival now because of the supervisors and mayors taking their position. I maintain it was premature, but that's how things work in politics sometimes. Second issue we've been grappling with is item pricing. This is something I've also discussed in the past. Right now, Dutchess County is the last county in New York State to require supermarkets to list the individual price on every item, every can, every bag in supermarkets. In this day and age of scanners, most supermarkets find it tedious, and most, if not all, supermarkets are choosing to pay a penalty in Dutchess County rather than list the prices. And I've been noticing since we've been considering this, as when I go to supermarkets, I look and a lot of them I can see which ones are not doing it. The supermarkets have asked us to create a waiver system in which they would pay a fee, and then they would be no longer required to have individual item stickers on each product, so long as there was a sign on each shelf saying what the price was, and so long as there were scanners available that people can go and scan and just see what the price was. We've been considering the last several years. There has not been legislative support, and this month it came back on our agenda largely because there is a lawsuit pending against the county by one of the supermarkets. It's expected other supermarkets will jump on board, and if they're successful, it will be retroactive, and it could result in a hefty fee from the county if the county loses. Even if we win, there's still litigation costs. We did go in executive session, we discussed it, and when we came out of the executive session, there was insufficient support to move it forward, and so we remain exactly where we were in a standstill, and litigation goes forward. Third topic, which may have already and may soon generate some more attention, is we've been reviewing our ethics law. Our ethics law we've had for probably a decade or longer. It's never been called into action, which is a good sign, but you want an ethics board in case there are ethics violations. We have a new ethics board, and they are very gung-ho, which is good, but they reviewed the ethics board and ethics law and made suggestions. That came before us in May and in June, and there were some good ideas. Unfortunately, I think there were some bad ideas. I took issue with one in particular, which was to allow anonymous complaints. Currently, as it is written, you have to have a signed written complaint. And I think that's important, especially in a political environment. If a complaint comes in, if the ethics board finds that it is credible, they can have a hearing, and the person who is charged can defend themselves. They can have any type of hearing, and then ultimately there's a decision. If they judge a violation has occurred, they have the ability to assess a penalty. The ethics board wants the ability to accept anonymous complaints. To me, that's unacceptable. This is not in the legal system, so the rights don't apply. I think that you still should have the ability to confront your accuser and see what this is, and I think it can avoid frivolous ones from coming forward. I've been locking horns with the executive branch all summer long. We both now have competing ethics laws, and it looks like October is when they're going to come to a clash. I have a number of legislators on my bill which maintains signed written complaints, and I'm being told that I'm weak on ethics, and I said no, I'm strong on rights. So we'll see what happens with that as we go forward. Also, we have our budget is approaching. November 1st is when the county executive brings it before us, and I do not know too much about it. It has been come out that they will be planning to merge the health department and the mental hygiene department. He's expressed this in 2 previous state of the counties, so it's no surprise. They're looking at 1 commissioner and would plan to implement it over the next 2 years. So that's what we know so far, and then we'll find out what else comes in the budget in the weeks ahead. That's all I have, unless there's questions on any topic whatsoever.
No question. Thank you very much
Good.
for your
Thank you for
report.
staying awake during my presentation.
I have one. Has there ever been a debate about televising?
Could you go up to the podium, please?
Has the issue of televising Dutchess County legislative sessions ever come up, or could we push for maybe a lame duck session, when people aren't...
Not only has it come up, but all our meetings are webcast. They're on the internet. You can watch them live as they're happening. On the website, I think it's dutchessny.gov under the legislative branch. If you click on it, it says view meetings here. They're also filed there. You can go on and see past meetings, committee meetings, board meetings, budget meetings, and it's a great resource. I use it all the time when I think back to what did we, somebody said something in May, and I'll go and look on it and watch it. So it's definitely a good resource, and you can follow along and see how your legislator's doing and how the work that we're doing out there. So good question.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask about the evaluation. We have a problem in our school district where those of us that are in Amenia, when you pay your taxes to Dover, and the equalization figures that they use, a person living in Amenia is 105%. Plus, they pay 45% above that, and a person living in Dover, paying to the same school district, only pay 1.5%. So I don't understand. How do we get the equalization even close to the same?
I'm not sure myself. I think there's a lot, but we could probably follow up with that and between the school district, Amenia, Dover County, whoever needs to be, and try to find an answer for you. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, 2015 budget. We had our first budget workshop on Tuesday, September 9th. The next budget workshop will be Tuesday, September 16th, and we'll be meeting with the Water District, Historian, Library, Planning Board, Justice Court Constables, Town Clerk, Registrar, Tax Collector, the Supervisor's Office, and Director of Finance. I have a few things under other matters. I received a letter from Weebatuck Central School, John Zentz, Athletic Director. Dear Ms. Garodi, for the upcoming fall soccer season, we will once again need the use of the soccer field at the Amenia Town Park. We would suggest the same maintenance arrangement. You cut the lawn and we put the lines on as last year. As things currently stand, we would like to use the field on September 22nd and October 6th. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. Sincerely, John Zentz. If anyone doesn't have any
How is
questions
that
or,
with the schedule, with the field being used now?
well, there won't be at soccer.
Well, I know the Weebatuck Soccer League is there.
Well, they work it out with.
They work it out? Okay.
Yeah, they work it out with, with both soccer groups.
Did we have any problems last year?
No.
Great.
So I make a motion that we give Weebatuck Central School soccer authorization to use the soccer field at the Amenia Town Park for September 22nd and October 6th.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, the other thing I had under other matters, I did a webinar on fiscal stress monitoring system that the New York State Office of the Comptroller had online. It's where they monitor all the towns and villages to see how they're doing with their finances. They use financial indicators such as year-end fund balance, operating deficits, cash position, use of short-term debt and fixed costs. And, there's a calculation and a scoring system and a percentage. Significant fiscal stress is 65%, moderate is 55%, susceptible to fiscal stress is more or equal to 45%. Where Amenia, and it said entities receiving less than 45% of the total financial indicator points, and those with less than 30% total environmental indicator points will receive a classification of no designation. Amenia has very low fiscal stress. The fiscal score was 6.7%. The environmental score was 8.3%. So we were given the designation of no, we were given no designation as the type of stress. And does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring up?
Yeah, but what it doesn't measure are things that we know will need repair or, we know that we need a new boiler. We know we need an HVAC system. We know we need a town highway garage. It doesn't reflect on here. So I think that's just the little asterisk that I would add to that.
Well, this is...
Unless you know that that has been measured or included in that review.
This was based on the annual financial report that goes every year.
Right.
That, it's basically showing what kind of shape we're in.
But I must say the good news is that we don't carry a lot of debt, so that there is room in our carrying capacity for taking on some bigger ticket items. The landfill being one of those big ticket items.
Is there public comment?
Good. I thought you forgot. I went out to get a web address from that gentleman. I thought I missed it. 10 seconds I was out of the room. Hello, board. Kevin Casone, Amenia. Thank you for the privilege to speak, the opportunity to speak. I'm really concerned about what I heard going on with the reappointment of the water officer. That should happen at a televised meeting. Yes, for services, you don't have to put it out to bid. Well, who writes laws in Albany? Gee, could it be Forest Service people? Are they lawyers? So they exempt themselves. We put the $5,000 contract to cut our grass out to bid, which we don't have to. We could get a local guy who, like a Jeff Johnson or the other gentleman who's here wants to speak about it. I forget his name. Sorry, sir, if you're out there listening. We could get somebody who would gladly do extra work, bend with us, not hold us to the exact, letter of the contract. But we don't. We put it out to bid, and we get idiots and fools. People who cut my gardens down last year 3 separate times. So there are things you don't have to put out to bid that you do. So why aren't you putting out this contract to bid? It's 30-ish now. He wants to add money to read the meters. I'm sure that's going to be a couple of thousand a quarter, maybe 1,500, 2,000 a quarter. So his contract's going to get up close to 40, 30, more than 35. I think that's a fair guesstimate of what his new contract will be. Why this contract wasn't asked for in July? So you could review it in August and be talking about it now. Why are we sticking with one water officer? And I'm sorry, I don't want to be like somebody who spoke at the first public comments. I've been trying to moderate my statements, but it does sound like some people here are just an apologist for this man. Okay, it's him and it's a partner. Between the two of them, they have the licenses they need. I don't think there are any other employees. Have you asked to see if there are other employees, W-2s, do they pay workman's comp, SSI? Where are these other employees? Because I think the other gentleman is much more elderly than Marco. And I don't know if he could do all the work when Marco's not around. But that's actually, I'm going off into the weeds. Forget that comment. They should go out to bid. I'm sure if you poll people in a water district, you'd get more than a 90% result that they wanted to go out to bid. Vicki, you said when you call VRI, I guess, who is our other option, I've heard that from other people, oh, they charge you for every phone call. What, like our lawyer? Why is that so bad? I've never heard you complain about that fee-for-service basis when it comes to our legal counsel. Sorry, I don't mean to hold you out, but it's a fair example, right? You're nodding your head, yes, I think. So why not get what when you use service, you have to pay for them. Marco was just doing some things on the cheap. Businesses do this all the time. I was a computer consultant. To get a contract, you'll waive charging for all sorts of things initially. Then you get the contract. Now you have them, they like you. Then you start inching up the cost. This is common business practice. Also, there are other problems with Marco. He has a history of ever so gently, slightly sort of intimating to people, if you do the work with me, there won't be a problem. Well, of course, I'll pass my own work. If somebody else does it, I'll have to come and inspect it. I think the man uses his governmental influence to get himself private for-cash jobs. I've had people come up to me and say as much, and the way I just said it was a stunningly mild way of saying it. I could say that much more strongly. And the fact that this is going to be approved at some budget meeting where you don't have this camera running, for shame. That cannot happen.
We're not approving anything. We're just going to...
I don't even want to discuss without the camera running, because for people...
we're not approving anything.
Okay, but Vicki said, why don't we talk about it at the next budget meeting, which are not televised.
Well, so what? I mean, it's advertised.
We have to figure
Because everybody has the time to come here, because we live for coming to town meetings. No, it's not the same. It is not the same. He uses his influence to get himself private jobs. I think we should look at other people. And I think when you look at the cost of what he's going to be asking for new against VRI won't seem so expensive. I mean, funny how you love out-of-town people because of their objectiveness when it comes to the tax assessor, but love an in-town person when it comes to our water operator. Why the dichotomy of opinion there? If it's good in one case, why isn't it good in the other? If it's bad in one case, it should be bad in the other. I want to know everything that's happening about this. I don't think his contract should be renewed. And by the way, Mae Johnson is a nice person. She's a sweet person. But she's been completely hoodwinked by Marco. When she came up months ago and said, when there was an article in the newspapers, excuse me?
Your 5 minutes are up.
It's a rule that's inconsequential since you let people go over 5 minutes all the time when you like what they're saying.
I did let you go over. You're over. You're
Good.
more like 10, so you're done.
He cannot, it's an ethical violation for him to be the member of the board. John Fenton reports to the planning board, and yet he's not a member
Why
of
are
it.
you still
John
going
Fenton
on?
reports to the zoning board, yet he's not a member of it. He does not need to be a member of the water board and still report to it. Thank you.
Town board comments? Oh, public comment? Go ahead.
Most of us were around when the snow removal ordinance went in. If I remember correctly, it was Lejeune who did it. But the sidewalk belongs to the property owner, not to the town. And if you walk along there and trip and break your leg, you sue the landowner, not the town. And I think abolishing that, because you're only representing a few people that have sidewalks. You may have sidewalks, but of those on the board, there's only one that I know for sure has a sidewalk. So, you know, that is not, it's a savings, a great savings, I think.
Yes, it is.
So, thank you for even considering that. It's not going to be a popular item, but thank you.
Any other public comment? Town board comments?
Do you have any, Vicki?
Yes, I do.
You want to go first?
Sure. The public hearing for Sila Ridge has been extended to September 18th. That is Thursday, September 18th at 7 p.m. in the auditorium.
That correction to that, that's 5 p.m. It's been changed to 5 p.m.
Oh,
the Sila
I didn't know
Ridge.
that. Okay. 5
Not
p.m.
Sila Ridge. Sila Ridge is
They
at
put out the
7.
announcement for that.
Sila Ridge is at 7. Tamarack is at 5 p.m.
So
did not
Tamarack
get
and the
that?
property line is at
Yes,
5,
That's
and then
at 5.
Silo's at
Sila
7.
Ridge is at 7.
So the meeting will start at 5, though. Okay.
Okay, the Sila Ridge portion of the planning board meeting and public hearing is at 7.
In the auditorium.
Yes.
And there's a budget meeting, which we've already discussed. Everybody should turn out for those if they possibly can, because that's a lot of information that is comes out, which help us prepare the budget for 2015. It's on Tuesday, September 16th at 7:30, and it'll probably be going until midnight.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but it's a lot of important stuff.
But Victoria's buying pizza.
Not on taxpayer dime.
No.
So
No, I guess I'm funding pizza myself.
Indian Rock Schoolhouse, I don't know if you were going to mention that, Victoria.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Is this Saturday, is that right?
Yes.
Indian Rock Schoolhouse
10 to
Community
3.
Day, from what time to what
10
time?
to 3.
10 to 3.
10 to 3 at the Indian Rock Schoolhouse on Mygat Road. I wanted to respond that I think it is an important thing for us to have the opportunity to vote in November on what kind of assessor you want. Do you want to remain with the elected assessor, sole assessor, or do you want to go to a appointed, town board appointed one? And I think it is up to the voters. The voters can decide. I don't think we're shutting off any dialogue. This is good dialogue. I'll stay with that. And voting is there for you to make that decision. And I just personally, I just say that is a job that I think can be done more efficiently, more effectively with a professional person. It could be a local Amenia resident. It could be, but the choices would be a wider opportunity to look at people who do this for a living, who do this every day. It's a complex method to understand the equalization rates. Tom Warner brought up an interesting situation where the towns, surrounding towns, you may live in the town of Amenia but pay your school taxes to another town that does not have an up-to-date equalization rate. We have that situation in the Dover, and we have the situation in Dover Plains and in Pine Plains. There's seriously undervaluated, way overdue for revals. We're at 105. We're already talking about doing another reval. We're on a different mentality as the surrounding towns, and yet our citizens are paying an equalization rate that's far out of sync with, they're in the 60s, I think 67%. At least, I haven't looked at it recently, but that has been historically the situation for at least 10 years. Wouldn't you say? It's just way out of whack. And we need sartorial, professional, seriously good people to go and bat for the taxpayers of Amenia, because when big taxpayers come in and they request a change in their reval, it means all of us pay more when we end up settling and don't have the kind of serious data and professional ability to defend our tax rates. So I implore you to take this very seriously when you go to the polls in November and make your own decision. It's not that I think that I can make a better decision. I simply think that the town board can use their, by making it an appointed assessor, the criteria for hiring that person is much more stringent than it allows you to hire a professional outside of the town and gives you far more choices. So we do that already for planning board members. We already appoint ZBA. We appoint our zoning enforcement officers. We have appointed our assessor for the last 4 months, and the sky has not fallen. They've done a good job, and they're professional in what they do. They do it every day, and they have proven track records. So that's all I have to say.
Any other town board comment?
I wanted to know what the status was of the bench and the plant replacements for the Main Street grant. The bench replacement.
They're building it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be in a couple weeks ago, so do you have a time for us yet on that?
No, they told me it would take 6 to 8 weeks from when I ordered it.
So about how many more weeks do you think that's going to be, Victoria?
I'm not sure. I can send him an email and ask him how much longer.
And the plants, the dead plants?
What?
There
They
were
were
some
not
shrubs
guaranteed.
and some
There was
trees.
no warranty under the plants.
And water. They're very dry.
I'm sorry, Michael, but some of them are actually dead.
Well, we looked at them yesterday, actually, with the forester from the Department of Environmental Conservation, and they just need maintenance. They're not dead. The plant. Which ones are you talking about?
Some trees. There were some of the plants that were put in died.
Where?
Some on the Main Street, out of the Main Street grant.
Where are they located?
Trees on Main Street.
East Main Street.
So I was
Across from
just
Delangos? 'Cause
wondering.
those are not dead.
I was just wondering. No, not across from Delangos. Some of them do need pruning, but
Where
it's
are
not
the
covered
dead
under
trees?
warranty, so it doesn't matter anyway.
But the town is obligated to maintain them for 5 years under the Main
we
Street
have
grant,
to
so I would like to
maintain
know where they are. And
Yeah.
there are
We
other
can
ways,
go.
there's things
We
we
can
do
go on a
to
walkthrough
correct
if
the
you want to meet.
situation.
We can go ahead and walk through.
Well, no,
And
I just, it's part of the grant, and it is important, so if there is a dead
We
tree,
did do a walkthrough. Mike and I did it Wednesday morning.
Great.
yeah, just yesterday.
Yesterday.
Anyway,
Time
sorry.
flies.
So the public hearing notice, my next topic. Thank you, Victoria, for that information. The next topic is the public hearing notice was put up on the website for the Tamarack and the property line boundary, which will be at the 5 p.m. meeting. And then Silo Ridge at 7. Thank you, Vicki. Wassaic Fire Department is having a breakfast on Sunday. Hopefully everybody can go out and grab some pancakes before they head off to the Maplebrook Car Show, sponsored by the Lions Club, and the Indian Rock Schoolhouse Picnic and Community Day and Pie Contest. I'll be demoing spinning fiber arts, supporting our local agriculture, so hopefully everybody can stop by and say hey. And then on Sunday morning also, I'll be on Robin Hood Radio with Senator Chris Gibson. So if you have a chance, tune in between 9:30 and 10 a.m. and have a listen to what he has to say. That's all I had.
Couple things. The water department and the contract, I'm not against anybody, the job they're doing or anything like that. I want a choice. I'm looking out for the town of Amenia, and I think the town should have a choice, and there should be options explored. That's, my whole theory on that. I'm not saying what we have now is not the best choice, but we have to make informed decisions. And the only way we can make informed decisions is to look and see what other people have to offer. So that's really that. One more thing we talked about last meeting was the trees for the parking lot, the lower parking lot. Did we get anywhere on those? I mean, school has started, the buses are there. Again, I used the parking lot.
Chuck Walters, I sent the email that, I forwarded the email he sent, and they said that they need to be trimmed.
No, they said it was a recommendation, and which means it's not required. It's just a recommendation.
We did walk the,
Well, if they can't
we
see.
walked there with the forester, and he gave us some ideas for ways of pruning those trees to improve a little bit of the sight.
Vicki, the only thing I'm saying is I pull out of that parking lot 10 times a week, and 5 out of those 10 times I have to jam on the brakes. And my big worry, you have school buses pulling out, you have parents dropping off their kids, you have parents picking up their kids. For 3 trees, there's a possibility that you could destroy a family, and this is the issue that I have. And trim them, cut them down, prune them, whatever we have to do, we have to do something about it, because it's getting to the point where it is a safety issue. I mean, if we're so worried about the trees, let's plant 3 other trees somewhere else if we have to take them down. It's just, I'm looking at it as a safety issue, and it's a little personal to me because, again, I'm using the parking lot 10 times a week, and it's an issue that I see time in and time out. I talk to the bus drivers. The bus drivers have the same issues.
Yeah, they're higher up, so maybe it is.
The little buses are the van
difficult
height.
to see that.
My daughter takes a little bus,
Yeah.
and she actually goes out
To see.
the entrance because she has to see. So she can't even exit out the right driveway. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because it's the cars that are coming northbound from the traffic light, you can't pick them up. And it's an issue. It's really an issue. I mean, go out there at 8 o'clock in the morning and try to pull out of the driveway and see what happens.
Well, Lee's Trees got the bid for tree work, so do you want to have the trees trimmed in addition to the ones on the lawn of the town lawn?
Me personally, I think the trees should be removed. And I'll donate trees to plant them somewhere else, And again, I'm not against trees. It's becoming a safety factor right now. As much as you think I'm against trees.
You already cut down 4 trees that weren't even in any, they just beautified our streets and now they're dead.
Looks a lot better now, though.
No, it would have looked great with those trees there.
Okay,
this is
so
a
what do we
safety
want to
issue for
do
me.
about the trees? We need to do something.
I'd like to vote on it now.
Okay.
I make a motion that we remove the trees on the lower parking lot.
The 3 trees?
The 3 trees?
It just doesn't square with, yeah, we walked around with the forester. He's not a traffic control person. The traffic engineer didn't say it was a problem. Did the
Yeah.
traffic engineer?
Yes, he did.
He said it needed to be pruned but not removed. It should be pruned, not removed.
Vicki, I'm just going
I don't
again.
know.
We're going,
Well, we
we're
need
going on
to do, we need to
recommendation.
do one or the other. We either need to take them down or we need to prune them or trim them if they're a safety issue.
We're
We
going
can't
on,
just not do anything.
we're going on recommendations of people that come and they look at the tree. They don't live it day in and day out. And that's my problem with this town. We're going on recommendations from people that don't live here.
But the traffic engineer is very conservative. Chuck Walters, we walked around with him many times. He is very conservative. He looks at sight lines. These are very specific requirements. And I would be surprised if he didn't understand that there were school buses coming in, but maybe that wasn't part of his thought
Yes, he
process.
did.
Okay, so he
He was here.
understood. So sight distances
That was the
are
whole
what
reason for having them come out, because the school
he
buses.
does. That's what he does for a living. He's a DOT. He's been there for 30 years.
Victor, what
I'm
was his
surprised he didn't say-
recommendation, Victoria?
It was, he
Yeah, I
shared
forwarded it to you. It was, he said that they, that, you know, that they needed to be trimmed.
I
Or his
mean-
recommendation was to have them trimmed because there was a sight problem. I mean, when I was there, it was Stan and I and John Fenton and him, and he took one look at him and he said, I can see why the school buses can't see.
Again, I think it's a safety issue. I mean, do we want to trim them and see what happens? And then in 2 years, it's going to be the same thing all over again? Do we keep up on the maintenance on the trees? Again, my theory is that we take the trees down. If it's a big issue about trees, let's plant some more trees somewhere else where they're not a safety issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, Weebatuck has trimmed them way back every year so that there wouldn't be a problem. I mean, you know, when the school was here, I mean, they took care of it.
Or take one tree out so that on the exit you have a longer sight distance?
Victoria, the problem is when the road comes down, the level that the trees are at right now, the road is on an upgrade. So from the start where the bank is, you can't even see the roadway until your nose is out in the road. And that's the problem. I'm serious. Go out there in the morning and see what happens. By the time you're looking to see if the traffic coming south is clear, you already have 2 cars on top of you coming north. And again, I'm only talking from experience, and that's why I'm getting out of it. You know, I do it day in and day out, and 5 times a week there's an issue, you know? And I could almost want to look back on traffic accidents and see what's been there and what hasn't been there. In the last 5 years, I know 3 or 4 of them.
We've had accidents at
There's
that-
been accidents there.
At that intersection.
I don't want to say at that intersection, but on that
It's not
stretch
just
of
the
road.
trees. The other concern that is not being brought up, he said something that nobody caught on to, but he has to look left and right when you're making that turn. If you were to look to the north, we have one more tree, and that needs to come back. So you're not talking about 3 trees, you're talking about 4. He did tell you that the buses are pulling out the south end because
When
of
you're
that
saying
high.
he did tell you,
Mike,
okay.
just tell, because he's seeing it every morning.
Right.
The buses are pulling out on the south end, which is what we have listed as an entrance, because it is very difficult to pull out in the buses, not just with the trees.
They're using the entrance to
This-
exit?
This is a bus
Yeah,
stop.
that's what I just said.
This is where, this is a private school bus stop, this is where BOCES gets dropped off, this is
Yeah.
where there's an interchange of buses that comes about 2:30, 2:40, where 4 buses pull through to drop off the children and do the exchange. But it's not just the trees, it's also the exit sign, if we could, you know, also address that issue when we're cutting things down.
We are addressing that.
But today, just like it was done on this one, it was already been cut down, why can't we do it on that side? I mean, get it all out.
Well, one of the things he recommended that John is going to get the are double-sided one-way signs
But we're talking,
for all
we're
4
talking
driveways.
now. We're talking now. We're talking about an action that needs to be done by the board now, especially as schools have been reopened. So now, not only are we having our employees that are using this lower exit, you have a good chunk of the community who sends their children to the private school, and this is the drop-off location. So the amount of traffic has increased since the last 2 months of the summer vacation.
So do we want to switch the entrance and the exit to the lot?
No, we need to trim the trees. Does that...
That doesn't
if
change
that
the
is-
grading of the road, though, and Mike said
Well,
that was also a concern.
Apparently,
What's that?
the problem is sight distance, and the trees need to be trimmed. I mean, the school realized there was a problem because they trimmed them every year. In fact, they trimmed them back probably farther than they should have been trimmed. I mean, they pretty much...
Turn them into lollipops.
And we have a contract with Lee's Tree Service.
Yes,
So why aren't they trimmed?
because
We haven't
we need
authorized
authorization, there's been no authorization to trim them. They just go willy-nilly, go trim our trees for us unless we tell them.
Okay. But you don't want them trimmed, you just want them chopped.
I just think not that you're wasting your time trimming them, it's more of an expense. It's more of a, did someone call Lee to come and trim them? Again, we're going to put them on a schedule to come and trim the trees every 6 months, every 2 years. It's just, my whole theory is let's fix the problem. We have an issue, we know there's an issue there, let's fix the problem. And my suggestion for fixing the problem, what I would like to see, is the trees removed.
I have a person in the community who would be very upset if we made a decision without consulting her. She said she would serve on a tree commission and hear all of the
And
pros
I reached
cons.
out to her, and she never returned my call.
Well,
Calls.
we don't have a tree commission. Right now, we have a safety issue. So are we going to go ahead and trim the trees, or are we going to go ahead and trim the trees?
There's still a motion for the trees coming down,
You
right?
don't have a second, though.
You didn't have
Yeah,
a second.
Don't have a second.
So I would like to make a motion to, what? There's no second.
This motion didn't ever take place.
Just thank you. Thank you.
We're discussing here, and I don't want you shouting out and interrupting us, please. Okay, I make a motion to authorize Lee's Trees to trim the 3 trees in the parking lot. I believe there's a bush in between, there's a tree in between the 2 parking lots, between the parking lot and the driveway to the town hall, and also the trees on the lawn of the town hall. In addition to that, there are vines.
I can take those vines out. That does not need to be a professional.
The vines go all the way up the tree.
I know, but if you cut them at the bottom, the vines will die at the top, so you don't have to actually remove
So
the
you're going to
vines.
do them?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, so we're authorizing Lee's Trees to trim
Just do the trimming
all the trees
in the front of the town hall.
in front of the town hall and in front of the parking lot.
I'll second that.
Councilman Delango.
See what happens, yes?
After all that.
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle.
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi.
Yes.
And Councilman Prodi's absent.
Is there any other town board comments?
Is there a problem with the backups? We're getting error messages, not just on Friday.
With what?
The tapes that are supposed to be changed out, getting error messages from them.
I don't know. I'll have someone check them.
Please do. And then, no, that's it.
Okay, any other town board comment? Okay, supervisors report. I received a letter from the State of New York Department of Public Service regarding a Lifeline discount telephone service. It's a program designed to make basic telephone service more affordable for income-eligible consumers. They have designated September 8 through 14, 2014 as National Lifetime Awareness Week. New York State Department of Public Services is joining other state agencies, local human service organizations, and local telephone companies to promote Lifeline Awareness Week and focus attention on this important program. I have made copies of this letter. They are outside the town board meeting room next to the agenda, and I also have them on the table as you come into the town hall. There's a website where you can www.askpcs.com. There's also 2 telephone numbers and email addresses on the letter if you think this Lifeline discount telephone service would be helpful to you or your neighbors. So please let people know if you know of anyone who would be interested in that service. Something else that we have out as you come in the door by our bulletin board are these cards for Bonnie boxes. They're boxes of love for cancer warriors. We have a local person who collects articles, adult shoe boxes, soft hats, warm fuzzy socks, hand sanitizer, dark chocolate, word search booklet, get well card, and a host of other things. And what they do is they put these items in boxes for people who have cancer, and they deliver to them. The contact is Cindy Snow. She's 877-9013. And she has email at earthlyphoto@verizon.net. If you'd like more information, you can call her, or you can come to the town hall and get a card and find out how you can volunteer time or any of the items for the Bonnie boxes for cancer victims. And I think that's all we have. I think we've covered all the events coming up this weekend. There's a busy weekend for all of us. A lot of things happening. At the Indian Rock Schoolhouse Picnic and Community Day, there's going to have several new vendors. The SPCA is going to be there. The Sheriff's Department, Sharon Hospital are some of the new vendors that are going to be there, in addition to our fire departments. And the Lions Club will be sponsoring a chicken barbecue, so come out and mingle with everyone in the community and support the Indian Rock Schoolhouse. We need to have a short executive session for proposed litigation pertaining to alleged defect with a town truck. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion for us to go into executive session.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?